To keep our children safe, parents lock their doors at night. But what if the greatest access point to our children is already sitting in their hands? Welcome back to Rescued, Redeemed, Transformed. Today we're joined by Nate Lewis, founder and CEO of the Innocent, a nonprofit fighting child sex trafficking, exploitation, and sexual assault here in the United States. Nate has worked alongside law enforcement in both global and domestic anti-trafficking efforts and has spent years studying how exploitation operates across cultures and communities. Having lived abroad for 16 years and traveled to more than 40 countries, he brings a rare perspective into the realities of predators, trafficking networks, and what vulnerable children face today. This conversation goes beyond awareness. We're talking about prevention, protection, online exploitation, and what families, churches, and communities need to understand more than ever. So please welcome Nate. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Can you tell me, let's just go right into it. Can you tell me a little bit about the Innocent organization that you are the founder and CEO of?
Yeah, well, I listened to the people who wanted something to be done locally in their communities for these child sex crimes that were occurring. And several of my law enforcement friends, we were just figuring out, what do we need? Well, there's lack of training and there's lack of resources. There's budgets, there's red tape all over. And I was like, well, why don't we let the people fund their local law enforcement, a very specific crime, child sex crimes. And that's kind of how it took off. And now we're training law enforcement several different things. We're giving them advanced technologies and equipment, but teaching them through different trainings on how to proactively investigate child predators, traffickers that are online, and build strong cases and work with prosecutors to really build a lengthy sentencing through a strong case that doesn't plea out of court or that defense attorneys don't really have much of a defense for. So, and we're going into communities and states and building this network throughout the states of really just proactive investigations against people who are trying to harm our children.
Yeah, so you're based in Idaho, but I love this. I'm probably going to get some flack for what I'm about to say, but I am an America First person. I was born in America. I'm an American citizen. America first. I believe that the mission field starts in my home. And then when with my children, with my husband, and then I open my door and I have my neighborhood, my community, my city, my county, my state, and then my nation. I love that people go all over the world preaching the gospel, but my ministry is really a one-on-one ministry. I literally have ladies that have come out of some of the most horrendous things right in my home every week. So I love that. But you're based in Idaho, but you are only here in America.
Yeah, 100% of every single dollar raised or given through us to law enforcement stays inside of our borders. And all of my instructors are currently active duty law enforcement, so they're doing these investigations now. Things are changing literally every few weeks. There's a new app or something. So having officers who are consistently in this space with the new things, the new trends, the new emojis, the new slang is really beneficial. And law enforcement also likes the fact that, hey, these guys are not just teaching us, they're actually doing this work. And through that experience, they're able to, in class, really have that one-on-one personal conversations about what works best, what doesn't. And so, we're not a vigilante group. We're law enforcement trying to assist law enforcement. And again, yes, U.S. based, but it's more than just U.S. based. Yeah, we will not go outside of our borders. But what's really interesting, and we're doing this in July, is we're able to actually host an event, or somebody in this valley is hosting an event to raise funds that are going to go right into not their valley, but also expand outside their community, but in their state. And so they're literally, you can sponsor an officer to go through our training. You can sponsor your local agency with the equipment. So it is U.S. based 100%, but it's even more laser focused to your community. And we have something we can talk about in a little bit called the Protector Team, which is community based throughout the United States, where people can become a team leader. It's kind of an extensive background checks and things you have to go through to be the team leader. But then you build a team, and that's really the advocacy inside of their local areas where they're putting pressure on the elected officials and really questioning, especially during election season, on who's best fit for their communities when it comes to these type of crimes. And we're talking from the sheriff to the judges to the prosecutor. We want people to be empowered to understand how to see what is occurring and then ask the questions of why not. Why are we not doing something about it? And then when officers do, why are they getting slaps on the wrist with like 6 months in a county jail? And so we're going to help people kind of spearhead those efforts in their community and create change, which we've seen locally over the last 12 to 18 months. There's significant change when the people get loud enough. So that's part of our protector team. We could talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit, but not just U.S.-based, yes, community-based in your community where you can make change and impact and change the future of your community.
Wow. Let's talk about some misconceptions. I once had a lady tell me, listen, human trafficking doesn't affect me in very wealthy city here in Texas. And I thought, oh, I don't know about that. I think it does affect you. It affects your tax-paying dollars, but they also don't think that it's happening right here in our neighborhoods. Wealthy, the hood, and just everyday middle class. Can you give me a little bit more perspective on what that really looks like and what people are missing?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll start here. I was recently at a human trafficking summit in California where 32 states come together with all law enforcement. And a statistic that was shared with us there was that the top 3 professions that pay for sex, it's got to be very clear, these are individuals who are paying for sex with children. And the number 1 is an attorney, number 2 is a CEO, and number 3 is a doctor. And let me explain that a little bit. When we are going undercover online and posing either as a parent selling a child or a trafficker or whatever it may be, individuals are paying $250 for 30 minutes. You're looking at thousands of dollars for an overnight experience with one child. This is not something that is a poor man's game, so to speak. That's just one form of trafficking and exploitation. So you have to understand that if you think that you're not affected by it because you live in a wealthy community, it's the wealthy that are paying lots of money for these type of experiences.
When you say child, what is the age group of a child? Because when I think of a child, I'm thinking 8 years old, 5 years old, which I know women who have been trafficked at 5 years old, starting at 5 years old, well into their even teens. So what is the age gap group that you are finding in this arena?
Well, we're specifically focused on minors, so that would be anyone under the age of 18. What I can tell you is, in my experience, I've seen it all the way down to infants. And I mean literally 6 months old. So there's not really... I think there's some statistics out there. The average age of sexual abuse is like 9 to 12. So it's a wide range of ages. A gal that works for us, she started being trafficked at the age of 9 years old by her mom. So, and people are like, wait, her mom? You have to understand there's also different demographics where the mom may have, not in this particular case, but we see lots of them where they have a drug addiction. And so without any kind of real skills or resume, an easy way for them to make money to support their drug addiction is they have children. And there's people who want to have sex with these children. And so it's easy for them to set up these dates, even convince their children that this is normal. It's pleasurable. It's just something that we do, and then they end up in that life, and then sold maybe to another organization or another group, and then potentially pregnant, forced abortions, or delivered the baby. Then they use that as collateral against them and force them to do certain things. Abuse on that child as well. So there's a lot of abuse happening to children in general. And there's lots of different ways, through voyeurism, through exploitation, through sextortion, physical trafficking. It's more than people would even expect, to be honest with you. I think people would be shocked when they see. Here's a statistic for you: 42 million survivors of child sexual abuse living in the United States. And a lot of these stats you can find on our website as well or through our social media. 1 in 3 girls, right now, 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused before they turn 18, and 1 in 5 boys. And 1 in 5 children will be exploited for sex online before they turn 18. So it may not be that these people who think, oh, we're not at risk, my kid's not at harm, and they're not going to be trafficked. There's different ways. It's not what it used to be. Where you're going into a brothel or certain things, and those things do happen, but your child is going to be exploited, especially with the advancements of AI, and probably more likely for boys, they're going to be sextorted, which means that they're going to have a fake account and thinking that they're a girl. Boys are much more likely to send photos and request photos from girls, and so they start sending photos, and then that turns into a bribe because they've now friended their parents and their friends and classmates, and They used to, we used to hear of them saying, well, I'm going to send these photos if you don't send this $10,000 or whatever. They actually are now just sending them and saying, we're going to send more if you don't. So they know that they actually already have sent them. But then at that point, the damage is done, and we've seen it just lead to suicide in these young boys. So does it not affect people? This is what I think. If there's internet access, you're vulnerable. It doesn't matter your demographic. It doesn't matter what you look like, including the predators. You have to understand, majority of the time, including probably any listener right now, when they hear a certain case, like, man, I can't believe it was that guy. Because people can hide this. It's not like alcoholism, where it's very visual. This is an addiction that's hidden in a closet that can be hidden online. We teach a 4-hour rule in some of our classes, and what that means is that somebody can tell their wife, hey, I'll see you after work for dinner, call in sick, drive 4 hours, abuse a child, and then be home for dinner. So you're talking, this is a hidden addiction. There's websites specifically designed and apps for the paying and selling of sex. And it's not just like dark areas. This is happening right in front of your eyes, parents. This is on social media apps. We know because we pose as children, and we know it's happening in the grooming that's taking place online.
Oh my gosh, so chock full of information. And I want people to know this so much. Protect your children. Protect your children. Have a relationship. It begins with a relationship. But I want to go into when you guys do pull in all this evidence and then arrest him, as I'm assuming you are a father and a husband. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, I'm one of those 42 million, right? And my sister, I do this because my sister was trafficked. And this is why I'm so passionate about, hey, let's protect our children. But when you arrest these people, I think if it was on me on that end, I would not hold back. I think I would see red and I would beat the living daylights out of that person. So how do you guys mentally come about all of this? Because it has to be hard on you and your team as well, dealing with some of the depravity of this world.
Well, it's by far the hardest part of what we do, without a doubt. I'll give you a specific example. My friends who are firefighters and EMTs as well, outside of law enforcement, any fire that involves children or any car accident that involves a child inside the car is much more traumatic. So when you're dealing with children and trauma, it causes more trauma to the individuals that are on scene. And when you deal specifically with child crimes, it's actually, there's a new medical term for PTSD, which is an ethical PTSD. So it goes against ethics and your morals, right? And so it's not just like you're seeing trauma. This is very difficult for the human brain to comprehend, especially when you start joining the words of adult-child sex, and they're united through that. I would say that professionalism, you're trained to be professional. You have to, fight back that desire and that urge. And there's also a lot of ways that we as individuals, including myself, I can speak for myself, we have to find healthy ways to handle these things so that you don't blow up in that situation, but not just in that situation where they're being arrested at home, in the workplace, all across the board. And one of the things that I personally struggle with the most is, you're dealing with some of the darkest, if not the darkest stuff in the world. And my first experience hunting witch doctors who were, sacrificing children and leaving them for dead, it was the first time I felt real anger. And you got to know that my whole childhood was physical violence, sexual abuse, and I was even kidnapped, taken to gunpoint, went through the whole judicial system and faced 2 of those individuals, and I never felt this level of hate. So carrying around the hate, which I think is the first thing you have to let go of and work on, is how do you let go of that hate, or where do you release that? Because carrying around and damming it up and thinking you can bury it is impossible to do. I don't care who you are. It's very difficult. It really is. Hopefully you've done your job as an investigator to build the strongest case, so justice and the justice system will prevail. Physically hurting someone can hurt for a while, but a 25-year prison sentence or life in prison, or in Idaho, death by execution, is more justice than I can do physically on my own. But doesn't mean that I don't feel anger. Doesn't mean that certain cases still trigger me. It's hard. Human brains can never comprehend this. We can't make it make sense. So it's a struggle, and the evil. Oh, and then another thing, you're talking about spiritual warfare. That's, I think, the thing that most people don't want to talk about. Even trying to get on this morning, technology, any way, shape, or form in my life, I feel like there's attacks. Like something's trying to prevent us from doing good and protecting children. And there's a negative force and energy out there that's trying to stop us from doing good. And that is real. Trust me. And my team, I've been doing this. I did this internationally before. And when we were bringing on the new team members for this organization, I explained this to them. Like, hey, just so you know, you're going to see more miracles than you've ever seen in your life take place. But you're also going to be more attacked than you've ever experienced in your entire life. And they were like, oh, yeah, I get it. No, now they're like, even last night in a meeting, like, man, it's constant. And then as we set up for these trainings and these ops, always, or if we're getting in front of, 100+ sheriffs or chiefs of police at a conference, we feel it. I mean, physical sickness, and we're talking about 3 individuals in 3 different places that are going to come together for a couple of days, and it is attacks, like spiritual warfare, for real. And that also plays into the mental side of it too. The spiritual attacks can be mental, when we're talking about your mental health and in some of these things that the anger, man, the devil knows where to get in. I tell you, and he sees a little crack, and he just kicks it in and tries to divide and kill and steal and destroy your peace and everything. So there's something I've had to do for years now, a routine that helps. It does. Therapy helps. I don't think there's a cure-all, so to speak. I think there's things that are very helpful, but it's tough. It's tough. And I want to share one interesting story that goes back to a recent previous comment too. When it doesn't happen in your community or in your demographic, we did an operation where 12 were arrested in 48 hours. It ended up being 17, but we have tactical teams like SWAT that do the takedowns that arrest these individuals. And afterwards, it was interesting that they don't get to see the investigations or the chats or anything that's going on. They are literally there to just make the arrest and apprehend these individuals. And when they seize their phone, you could just hit someone's button and it shows their wallpaper, and they were shocked at how many, almost 50% of them on their phone was a picture of them and their child, or them with a picture of their family on their phone. Teachers who their Facebook profile is a picture of them and their family right on their profile, who are in schools with kids under the age of 18 that are talking to us that they know we're a child. This is the realities of what's going on out there, and that also makes it difficult, as we just know there's so many parents doing horrible things to their children, or have these children at home, or stepchildren. The Department of Justice released that 90% of the sexual assault is done by somebody they know, love, or trust, and that's a hard thing for people to grasp, that reality.
Wow. I love that you're throwing out all of this information because I think that people just it goes in one ear and out the other, and hopefully on the other end with whatever pictures we're talking or just your story, it penetrates the heart of people. I want to go back to a couple of things. Um, uh, I want to actually ask you, because you are obviously a believer in Jesus Christ. He's your Lord and Savior. And especially for you to bring up spiritual warfare, the devil is real, the enemy is real, evil is real here in the world. But what brought you to the Lord? Because I don't think I could do what I do without the Lord. First, he had to heal me, and then he had to send me. So I'm just, what is your story?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting story. So I was raised in church and then only for a little time. And then we didn't really go to church and just kind of went on about my life. And it was really the lowest point of my life. And it was at a funeral of a 30-year-old friend of mine, this young gal who died of breast cancer. And her sister and my sister worked in the oncology unit where she was spending her last days, her second round. And she was saying bye to her children and to her family with a smile on her face. And the nurse was crying. She comes out. My sister comes to her. What's going on? She's like, oh my gosh, she was saying bye to her family. But she would walk the halls of the hospital and go in and talk to them with such an incredible spirit, so joy filled. And people were dying as she's dying, and they're like, how do you have this? And as her sister at the funeral is telling this story, and I'm in the lowest, worst place of my life, literally verge of suicide. She's telling the story and she says, Holly would reach down and she pull out her necklace and she pulls it out and it says, try God. And I thought for a moment, if she could be in a place where she's saying bye to her family, her kids, with a smile and joy and comforting them, saying, no, don't be sad. I'm going to a beautiful place. But she could find peace and joy in the way worse situation than I was dealing with. Possibly maybe I should try God and see if I can find peace. So I did, and I shut off all music that I listened to, and I just started listening to Christian music. And then it was maybe 6 weeks in. I don't know the exact timeline, but an incredible peace came over me for the first time in a year or more. And I knew that that was real. Like that was a real peace that came over me. I went, oh my gosh, this is real. And then the exploration of just kind of identifying what that was and researching and spending more time. And honestly, to be very frank with you, is I worked with Jim Caviezel for 20 plus years. We're still good friends, and also a producing partner and film with him. And he played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. Many know him from that. And his incredible spirit and his faith is so profound and deep. And spending so much time with him for so many years, his influence on me, there was no way you can't deny the truth. And then I started my own personal journey. I just, and then just the miracles. There's been so many insane miracles in my life that I look back on. And then inside this organization, there's no way I could deny that it's not real and true. That's just the reality. Is like, there's no way to explain it. There's nothing that I had to do with any of it. And it's just an overwhelming just reality. And so that's kind of a small little look into it, but it's much bigger and deeper than that. And truly, I will tell you this much, whether people who out there listening do or don't believe, I can tell you right now, I'm in the Word every single morning. That's part of my routine. And if I didn't equip myself and fill myself up, I couldn't pour out into others. And there's other things that I do, but I have to reset because throughout the day, certain things will build up: anger, resentment, frustrations with whether it's judicial systems or whatever it may be. That morning in the quiet where I set that time up and it sets me off and gives me good vision for the day and purpose and realigns me and brings me down and brings back that peace into my life. I can't go a day. I can go days without showering or breakfast, or sometimes breakfast and lunch, but I can't go a day without that because it really truly is my reset to give me strength. Now, I don't say that I continue to have strength all day, every day, but I've tried a lot of things. I've tried years of therapy. I've tried all the tools that they've given me, and they do help. But I've not found anything else that truly does more for me in so many areas of my life. So there you go. I didn't expect to share all that, but that's just how I get through my days and how I get through it all. And it's still not easy.
I love that because I don't think I can get through my day and or even through some of the trauma and abuse that I suffered as a kid, where it wants to come and be that cyclical thought process. And it's like, oh, I could just lean on Jesus. And I love to say this. I want to tell the audience this. Listen, the peace of God, that word is shalom, shalom. It means perfect peace, safety, security. It's more than just peace of mind. But God's going, I can make you safe all the way through. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that and sharing what God has done in your life. I think that's so cool. Tell Jim I said, hey. So can we go back and help me, please help me. I think that this is a question that I ask a lot and no one's really able to answer this question, but what is going through a mind of someone, or what possesses a person, the attorney, the CEO, the doctor? It sounds like people that have money that is going and buying children. What do you think is the drive for them to do such a thing and to harm a child? Because I would say they probably wouldn't do that to their own child. But again, a lot of the women that I serve, their parents are one of the perpetrators. So, but yeah, what do you think is the drive that is causing these people to be so evil?
Well, there's not one single drive. I think that across the cases that I'm aware of and familiar with, there's different reasons why. One, they were sexually abused as a child for maybe years. I think there's been cases, where individuals had said, hey, they're acting out on a childhood fantasy that they never lived, like they just, never had a girlfriend growing up, never, they got, whatever. I think that some of it is a gradual decline in their ethics and values, meaning a specific example would be, maybe a young kid sees a swimsuit issue, Sports Illustrated, but feels something for the first time, like, whoa, what was that feeling? But 10 years later, a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue does nothing for them. It's the dopamines that are occurring. And so you need harsher, stronger content. And then, as an old male, paying for sex with a 22-year-old isn't as gratifying. And so they need to increase, maybe bring in, I know this is sick, but animals, or, they want to do physical violence. They have to increase the level of intensity to get the same dopamine release, similar to like a drug addict. They might have started with marijuana and they ended up doing heroin and fentanyl. They didn't start with heroin and fentanyl. It led to that because of the dopamines in the brain. And so I think there's a lot of different scenarios. One that I see is power, money, safety. They feel secure. They have power. It also isn't just like, oh, I wake up one morning and this is it. It's a slow, not always slow, but it could be a gradual digression of, hey, I'm going to take a step in this direction. And they feel safe there. So now like, well, maybe I'll take another step. And then 2 years later, they've taken 10,000 steps downward and they got them there. My personal overall, if I had to narrow down to one thing, is there is a sickness inside of an individual that I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but there has to be some sort of clinical diagnosis in these individuals where their mind is not right. It's completely dysfunctional, and I don't know if there's really any rehabilitation. I can't imagine there is when you've gone so dark and so deep that there is any type of rehabilitation. It's an incredibly dark mental health, and you use the word possessed. 100% no is the enemy. It's the devil. It is the darkest evil in our planet that exists. I don't think there's a darker evil than one that preys on our children. And I think that if there was a single answer that encompasses all the things that I've seen and reasons and why, it's really just that evil is real and that consumes people. And like I said, when there's a crack and the devil kicks it in, I think with years and years of darkness living inside of someone's soul without light, it gets worse and worse, and it grows, and it continues to grow. And that's what the enemy wants. It wants to kill, steal, and destroy. And that's exactly what they're doing. And then it spreads. When a child gets abused, they're more likely to abuse another child or become an abuser themselves. Not always. I'm not saying that that happens all the time, but it is common because they're also being groomed. Children can be easily manipulated. Here's the thing, parents, if you don't have a conversation about sex with your kids, somebody else will. And they're going to teach them that it is normal and that this is okay and it's accepted. And they're going to tell them whatever you didn't tell them that's for their own agenda. They're going to groom them. And then that child is going to be innocent. And they're going to say like, oh, hey, friend, did you know this? No, I didn't know either. Oh, great. Well, let me teach you about what I was taught. And now it's passing it around. And then, sadly enough, there are children abusing other children because they've been abused and they've been told it's normal, right? It's just how things occur. So evil and darkness is the number one thing, I would say, is why this happens when you get to the root of all of it.
Yeah, my story is I was abused by a child first, then an adult. And then my sex talk was you get pregnant by kissing boys and eating watermelon seeds. So I really honestly believe that. And then I was assaulted at 12 years old and had no clue what was happening to me until later because I didn't have a sex talk. And so the first moment I had a chance to tell my kids about sex, I did because I wanted them to understand. Look, it was meant between a husband and a wife, and it was a God-given gift, and blah blah blah. So we should do a whole sex talk video of how to talk to your kids about sex, because I just remember my daughter going, "Ew, gross, mom," but at the same time, my kids were never naive to what is happening in the world. So
yeah, there's a great resource on our website, theinnocent.org, under resources, and it's age-appropriate conversations. And that's not just about sex specifically, but it's also about touch and areas of touch and privacy, not keeping secrets, right? Because that's how a lot of these people groom your child and like, hey, this is our secret. There's no such thing as secrets. But at a young age, and my kids are very young, 5 and 7, we've already for years had conversations about no one touches these specific areas, and when they do, you need to tell us or another adult immediately, and you never keep that a secret, right? Like, absolutely no, this is what you do. So that might not be a talk about sex quite yet at that age. You know, I think it was at 4 for one of our sons, just because they need to know. And the only reason I say this is because I've seen it. You might not believe it, but I have seen it in my life. They're going to tell your 4-year-old that whatever they need to say, and they may not even say anything, they just do it. And then when they react, or they're going to just tell them like, hey, didn't that feel good, or whatever it may be. So you have to tell them that. Have these conversations. A 10-year-old has a different conversation than a 4-year-old, right? And then a 16-year-old is a different conversation. And so go check out some of the resources that we've provided. There's red flags of grooming and all kinds of things on there for resources for parents to look at. But have conversations. I love what you said earlier, because I say it all the time. It starts with the relationship with your child. And you have to start that immediately. Building a safe place. And boy, I could go in on, we could have a whole episode about creating a safe place, because we're training law enforcement to do that as well. And how you react, or better yet, don't react when a child comes forward. A child is going to give you one tiny little piece of information. Maybe it's subtle, like, I don't want to go over to their house. Oh, why not, right? How you react is going to allow them to feel like you're a safe place to give you more information, or I'm going to close down completely. I give advice to fathers that, I mean, it's for mothers too, but I've just seen, the anger and rage inside of a father when they found out that their daughter has been abused, and it's very difficult to not react immediately, but to stay calm and have a conversation and then meet them where they are and get rid of your 40 years of experience and all that stuff and try to become a 11-year-old. However, I'm using a specific example because this 11-year-old, her mindset was completely different than the parents or the uncle that she went to first, because she was afraid to go to her parents. And you have to understand the fears that they're saying are real to them, even though they may not be real to you. And let me give you the exact specific example that took place. She was afraid to go to her parents, so she went to her uncle because he felt like a safe place, because she knew her dad would freak out because they knew who this individual was. The uncle says, we need to go to law enforcement. Her first response was, when I talked to the aunt and uncle, and I says, well, you need to go to law enforcement. She says, she doesn't want to. And I said, why? Because she's afraid that when they find out, they're going to take away this man, and his children, which are her friends, won't have their dad around anymore. Now, as an adult, we're like, well, that seems crazy and irrational. Of course, we're going to take away that dad from their parents. And I feel bad for the kids that their dad is that, but we need to protect those kids, right? But her fear was they're not going to have a dad anymore. Little Jessica's dad, they're going to take him from her. That you have to accept that that's her reality, right? Like, that is a fear and validate, like, I understand, and I love that you have empathy for your friend not having their dad around, but you have to start thinking about the protection of your friend, right? Like, and the crazy thing about this case was that the reason she came forward to her uncle is because one of her friends, who was also being abused by the same individual, committed suicide. And so she came forward to say, I don't want to end up committing suicide, so I want it to stop. So I feel like I have to talk to somebody. And in this specific case, I actually said, hey, when you tell the dad, because I was talking to the uncle, take him on a drive in a car. I don't care. Go out to the country, wherever, and tell him so he can unleash the anger that he needs to, because he's going to be angry. And what is he going to do? And he's going to want to do certain things, but don't let her, because she's also going to be a fear of how he's going to react and that sort of thing too. So there's a lot to listening, not trying to fix immediately, listening. Here's a great key for anyone. I hope you never have to experience this as a parent, but when you start asking questions to the child, they start feeling like they're being questioned, that maybe you don't believe what they're saying is the truth. Even if you say, I believe you, which is what I always say, it should be the first thing that you say. I believe you, and I'm sorry. Are you okay? But don't start asking questions. There's a time and place for that. And law enforcement's probably going to ask more questions than you would anyways. It's going to help build their case. And you don't want to re-victimize them every time they have to retell the story. Comfort them. Tell them they're okay and they're sorry. But don't question them, because I've seen too many times where they feel like, I'm going to shut down. They don't believe me. I'm being questioned. This is real. And I'm going to give you nothing more. And that's it. They will give you nothing more. So I know I kind of went off on a different angle there, but there's a lot that I could go off on different angles. I mean, we could do 10 hours of this, and I think I could talk the whole time.
Honestly, Nate, I'm okay with that. So, I did start off with the touching conversation with my kids, and I would love to share a story. So my daughter is about 5 years old, and I never let my kids go anywhere without me. I just, my whole thought process was, I'm not going to let happen to them what happened to me. So I'm going to protect, and I'm going to be the mama bear that I'm supposed to be. Anyways, we go to a birthday party, and her little friend's dad is hugging on her, and hugged her and said something to her, but I didn't hear it. And then all of a sudden she comes over to me and says, Mommy, I want to go. And I said, oh, okay, let's go. Right. And I take her home, and she eventually tells me, I don't like the way he hugs me. And I said, no problem. And we never went back. I don't have to explain to anybody else. My kid comes first. A lot of people who are abused and then they try to tell someone, maybe they don't get, that's what they need. They just need someone to believe them. and not be called a liar. And because the groomers are like, man, if you tell somebody, they're not going to believe you anyway. They know me. They know I would never do that. Or, there's threats that come, and we have to trust our children. And being a place and building trust relationship is the most important. So I can go off on tangents all day long. Man, can you let's talk about how do we create safe places for our kids? Besides the relationship, we're talking. You see a lot of things online.
Well, unfortunately, that's the most difficult thing to navigate right now for parents is that, we didn't grow up, a lot of us didn't grow up with social media or even iPhones, and internet. And so we didn't get taught certain parameters. And side note, a lot of these have no regulations. Social media is enabling a lot of these behaviors. It's not just it's not like, oh, hey, you're safe. Go ahead, have social media, go out there, just be careful. No, it's not. There's no parameters. You're not just giving your kid access to the world, you're giving the world access to your kids. And I think that that's an important piece that parents need to know. There's a lot. Oh, you asked about how do you keep your kids safe? Okay. Well, let me ask you this. When your child turns 16, what do you do to keep them safe in a car? Right?
Make sure they buckle up.
Well, that's only one area.
Yeah.
The seatbelt only helps if they don't get in a car accident. You have to avoid a car accident, right? And we don't just give keys to a kid and say, drive your car. We actually put them through classrooms. We put them through online testing, physical driving with a parent next to them for months and months and months and then we cover them with airbags and dings and all the things so that they feel safe. But essentially it comes down to how do they drive in the world? And are they aware of risks and dangers? This is the exact same thing. We need to, test our kids. Do they know what's dangerous on the phone, on the internet? And do we know what to look out for? And have we sat there with a parent? And I think the parents, there's a lot of tools, the Bark phone, Bark app, Bark watch. Those are all great things that we promote because there's a lot out there. But, in my experience, the Bark is one of the best things. It's not foolproof. Let me tell you why. Your kids' friends probably don't have the Bark app on their phone. That's why it's important to teach them about the risks and the realities of what's going on online, because they're going to be looking over the shoulder of the friend whose phone is not restricted by their parents. Unless all your friends, kids, friends, parents put the Bark app on their phone. It regulates them, right, and gives them notifications. So there's a lot of things that you can do. A very simple thing, two very simple things for you as a parent to make sure you do to your child's social media accounts, because there's 30 plus million teens on social media right now. Make sure that they have a private account. It's not public. And I know that's a difficult thing because kids' popularity is identified to the number next to their name, right? Whether it's friends or followers or whatever, subscribers. So it's a very visual public thing, their popularity. So they want it open so they can let everybody in. But kids are being stalked by predators because they have open accounts. Okay? So, and I can go into that in a little bit, but the second thing is turn off the disappearing messages function on every single messaging service provider that they are using. I don't care if it's Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, Instagram, WhatsApp, all those things where they can message somebody else. They have now turned on a function where you can have your messages disappear. Everyone's different, so look into each one. You can just AI or something, just search the specific one and what it looks like. Because what that is allowing is your child to have a conversation with somebody you may not know and you don't even know what's being said because those messages disappear. So how do you control anything if you don't know what's going on? So those are the two things that I say lock down immediately, like don't wait a day any longer. And if it will happen to a lot of parents, the child's going to fight back and be like, well, I don't want to lock down my account to a private account. Here's what I do, and I did this with a family member. I say, okay, well, let's go into your followers and see who they are. Let's just see who these people are. And Most of them, they're not going to know. I'd imagine if they have over 250, they probably don't know most of them. And then click on their account and then look at who they're following. And just yesterday, we were on an account of a young influencer who only had 500 followers, but her parents want her to be an influencer at a very young age, which I can talk about, that is insane too. And one of the followers who's following her, we're doing this exercise, is following about 1,200 individuals. Massive majority of them are sex accounts, right? So now your child is being stalked. Let's be honest, that's what it is. They're being stalked by a predator and potentially saving any image, any photo from that account and trading it, using AI to change it. And it's not just the child's account. Parents, you should do the same thing if you're posting a lot about your kids. It's fine to share your proud moments and birthday parties and all that stuff with your friends that are actually your friends, but there's no reason to do that with strangers. And they're going to be following you, and they're going to be taking photos of your kids. It's sick, and I know it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but I know for sure if your 10-year-old daughter has a birthday party and it's at your pool or wherever, the beach, and they're all in bikinis, some sick dude wants that photo of your 10-year-old and their friends in bikinis. They're sick. I know it doesn't make sense to a lot of us, but there are people who want that, and so just be careful.
I just want to say, so Anthony, he's behind the scenes, he's our editor and producer, but he was saying that there are actual programs and apps that they can take a picture of your kid on the beach in their bikini and produce a whole movie out of it. Like, they are looking to do whatever they can evil-wise to snatch your kids. So we have to be aware. May I give a little advice just coming from my perspective for parents? Man, relationship is so important, and we have to remember we're not their friends. We're their parents. We're supposed to guide them and counsel them and lead them in the way that they should go. So one time I had a gal, she gives me a call and she says, oh my God, my daughter, she was on Roblox and was sending naked pictures of herself to somebody on Roblox, and it turned out it was the older man, and she they were able to stop it, but they were never able to catch him. And she goes, I don't know what to do, and a lot of times kids do see us as parents as the enemy, but we're not. So I had said to her, I said, what would be a great idea is if you find an older girl that maybe is in their teens or in her 20s that is walking right with the Lord, to mentor and hang out with her. Then she's not going to want to go and have someone online tell her she's beautiful and he loves her so much. And so she did that. And so my daughter is her mentor. My daughter mentors a couple of youngsters. They're all junior high level, but if they can't talk to their parent, they can talk to this young lady who is a mentor and who is grounded in Christ. And we as parents have to be okay with that. Like, I set my kids up with, hey, if you can't talk to me, go to so-and-so over here. And I created mentors for my girls so that they felt safe if they didn't come to me and tell me. I believe that they tell me everything. At least that's my mama brain. They tell me everything. But it's okay to bring other people into your parenting, and it takes a village. I have a friend, she has 4 kids, and I'm very much a part of her life of helping to be a part of her kids' life. My daughters are a part of her kids' lives and helping to mentor them too. So I always encourage mentorship too if parents are like, I don't know what to do. But movie nights, camping, turn off the TV, turn off the computer, turn off the apps in the phone, and go outside and do something. We were raised like that. We were raised to go outside, and I just can't even imagine what this young generation goes through just in the comparison of the online stuff all the time. And then now they're having to keep up with that. And it's really easy for that guy or that perpetrator, because women are perpetrators too. I don't want to, it's majority guys, but women are bad too. They can do some evil stuff, and whether it's for money or because they're being abused themselves. But Boys get trafficked, girls get trafficked. It's across the board. But I lost my thought process on that one. But it's so important that we just be community, because healing is in community, and that we be parents, and that we are okay with bringing other people in, safe people, wise people, but that your children can trust. But always have that conversation. I love that you have um, that teaching online for that. I'm gonna have to go and look at that, and if maybe put a link through my website of go here, parents. But what exactly is the Bark app? I've never heard of the Bark app. That's new for me.
Yeah, so it allows you to get notifications if your child is visiting. You can set the parameters on what you want to be notified on. You can block certain apps. It's really just a safety net, so to speak. Again, it's not a fix-all, cure-all, but it is probably one of the most successful safety apps. So the parent downloads it onto their phone. Now it's not. There's always upgrades in certain things because they're finding problems, but the parent can download on their phone and their child's phone, and they can control. They can see. They can limit access. You can set timers. You can, there's a lot of things you can do as far as putting barriers on their phone. That's the problem. It's not on their friend's phone. It's just on theirs if they have a phone. So I would say look into it. They just came out with a watch as well. They actually have a physical Bark phone that you can get as well. I know a lot of people that endorse Bark. We'd have no affiliation with Bark whatsoever, but we do know that that one is very trusted and has a lot of personal people that we know use it very often. My kids don't have phones yet, so I don't have to worry about that quite yet. One thing I want to say is, we talk about the younger generation being in this new digital world, is what I call it, and I do a whole lesson on digital parenting. What I found that's very interesting to me, that came from a young lady during an event where we were saying all these things, and the older people were like, "Oh my gosh," gasping, and she says after an hour, what's the most interesting thing to me is all the gasps in the room. She's like, "This is my life for the last 10 years, which is why I don't do social media anymore." But in that moment, I realized that she's going to be the generation that really changes it because they lived through it. These are the next leaders of change, because maybe their photo was taken. Maybe they were bullied at school by boys, plural, to force them to send photos. And so being that they've gone through these things and they know it firsthand, they're going to hopefully be the ones that change laws, push things through. They're going to be hopefully the next best thing for all of us who are trying to figure out technology and what are the new apps and where are they going and what are they doing on these phones, and I can't keep up with it. We actually learn a lot from some of these predators because they're like, "Oh, well, let's talk over here," which, by the way, important thing as a parent, to start a conversation with your child on the phone. If they're messaging with someone and that person says, "Hey, download this app that I want to talk to you on," what they're trying to do is get your child to go onto an app that's based in the Middle East or something that doesn't work with law enforcement, that they can hide their identity, and they're going to start sending photos and having horrible conversations with your child that nothing can be done because they're a hidden, anonymous individual. So one, I would say have that conversation that this is what could potentially happen, but don't ever go to another place and have a communication. Stay on the major communications platforms. I would say stay off of them, but if they're going to be messaging, stay on those ones, because at least they do work with law enforcement in the United States to identify who these individuals are so that maybe justice can be served. But that would be one thing, parents, that'll start a conversation, right? And then they can just tell whoever they're talking to, like, "Oh, I can't download these apps," which is part of what the Bark phone does too, is it doesn't allow your kid to download apps, right? You can set up some of these settings as like, don't let your kids download Telegram and some of these other things. They shouldn't be on these things anyways. There's no reason a kid should be on some of these forms and platforms. So that's just a side note, parents. Have that conversation with your child. Do not download any messaging apps. That's not going to work out well. I can tell you. There's a reason they're trying to get you on some app you've never heard of to communicate on.
Yeah. I think my kids were teenagers when they got phones, and there was a rule you weren't allowed to be alone in your room with your phone. You had to do it all out in the open because, goodness gracious, that was a long time ago. So we didn't have all those apps to protect them or all that. But I didn't even let them do Instagram and Facebook and all those kinds of things. And it's better to be the person that says no than be the person that is having to come and now walk through a healing journey because you didn't say no. It's okay to say no. Please say no, parents. And, you know, I don't think anyone under being a teenager should have a phone. I don't think I hate the phone. I didn't grow up with the phone. So to me, it's the true ball and chain. Unlike the marriage, right? It's the ball and chain. It rings and I have to jump into action. But our kids shouldn't be under that kind of pressure. My goodness, I could talk to you about so much. Will you give me a couple of stories on some recovery operations that you have done? And actually, my question here is, that was what my thought process was. You had mentioned Idaho they have just come out with a new law that extreme sex offenders, like they have to do something really bad to get the death penalty if they harm a child. But do you find that as an American law enforcement here in America trying to do this job, is it a little harder than, say, if you were doing operations outside of America? Because we have all these judicial things that we have to jump through.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. I have this conversation almost daily. The 10,000 laws and rules and guidelines, which is why we have our trainings, that you have to follow to build the strongest case, because one minor thing, some defense attorney who's defending these clients, who have, some of them have lots of money and a reputation in businesses that they're trying to protect, so they'll spend a ton of money, tens of thousands of dollars on these, and they'll find any one tiny minor minuscule thing. Even us, because of our training, you know, we make arrests in our training, and we're building actual cases in our trainings, and so they'll come after us as well. Oh my gosh, this is one of the most frustrating things, that, you know, we have to walk such an incredible fine line, using strategy. It's a game of chess to actually make this happen. And this is where our protector team is really going to be effective, because this is what gets me fired up, makes me so mad. I have teams of investigators who build these cases. They teach this stuff to some of the largest agencies in the planet, in our country for sure, but probably some of the largest agencies, if you looked at the whole globe, they're probably some of the largest police agencies. Their cases, which are pretty much bulletproof, and they go through, and only 20% of them get to trial, which they don't really want them to go to trial, because if you see some of the conversations, most citizens aren't going to let this person walk. But because of whatever, caseloads, and we don't have enough prosecutors and judges, whatever, they're pleading out of court, and they're getting like a 6-month deal in a county jail. You know what drives me crazy is, you know what that does to the police officer who's put the training in, who's put the time in, who's dated these sickos online, even on the weekends they're messaging them. They're like, what a waste of time to do this, because I got somebody inside the court system who doesn't care, or potentially is part of the problem, doesn't understand the severity of these cases. There's laws trying to be passed in Washington right now where these sting operations that we're teaching, they're trying to lower the sentencing if you've been arrested in one of these sting operations. And coincidentally, I believe one of the people pushing this forward, their child was arrested in one of these sting operations, because there's not a live victim. I've even had prosecutor tell me one time, I can't give away too much information, but just with the advancements of AI and certain things, and officers pretending to be people online, I'm going to let you kind of use your mind to figure out where I'm going with this without giving away too much information. But one of these very powerful prosecutors told me that they didn't want to use this certain way of doing investigations because they didn't want an officer to sit on the stand, a man to sit on the stand in front of a jury, because they won't get the sympathy. They want a child, like an actual victim. And I went, are you kidding me? We're in the protection. space. We're in the prevention. What we train is proactive. We're not waiting for a crime to take place and react to that. We're talking about being proactive and preventing these, and go out and find these individuals before they continue to do this work. And you're telling me that you don't like that a cop was pretending to be a child? So you don't want to take that case? That's insane to me. Absolutely absurd. Sorry, I get fired up because it just drives me nuts when these guys and these women work so hard and then they get deflated by the judicial system, which is why I become a protector team leader, because you're going to hold them accountable in your communities, and we need that. We need people to take the power back from the people that we put in office that work for us, and we need to question them on this. And then after we have this comment, I do want to talk about one thing, several things, but I really think that there's some important pieces to talk about, which we'll get into, but I know that there's probably some questions and comments out there, so let's see if there's any that we can comment on.
I often feel like the American law judicial system protects the abuser more than the abused. Again, I have five. I have five abusers, and statutory laws say I can't even bring a case against them because, well, time has passed. But when someone is abused, it is for the rest of their lives, that they are walking through a journey of healing or fear or something. I am someone who is literally, it's called rescued, redeemed, transformed, because the Lord rescued me, He redeemed me, and He's transformed me, and I don't walk in fear like I used to before, but it destroys you. So it sounds like some of these law enforcement officers are putting months and months and years sometimes into their case, and the abuser doesn't even get the amount of time that they spent on the case. So at that case, I'm going to tell my husband about the protector team. I think he'd be very good at it. He's a retired firefighter, and I would say yes. When it comes to the PTSD, when it comes to children, he would just come home, and he was not even allowed to tell me about the kids because I couldn't handle it. Yeah, so we'll definitely have to look into more about what does it mean to be a protector in our community. Are you here in the Dallas area? Because I'm in North Dallas.
Yeah, well, we actually have assisted several agencies in your area, and we're going to be hosting some trainings. I can't give away the dates there. We were down near Waco, 5 agencies we've trained down there. We continue to support their efforts as well. So yes, we definitely are. We're still just building the spider web across America, and so my hope, we're doing it in Washington right now, is we're going to be hosting these trainings, and we'll be able to recruit officers from the entire state. Again, I talked about the 4-hour rule so that we can, if you looked at a map, you could put a pen in the map of all these agencies, and man, this year we're going to completely blanket the state of Washington, which needs it. And I hope we've already done a lot of it in Idaho, and Texas we've tapped into a little bit, but I want to next year cover the entire state of Texas. There's a bunch of states in the works, but that's kind of what we want to do, is like, how do we bring officers to a central location and get them all trained up and get them the equipment that they want to go out and proactively do these investigations with support from their admin, and then they leave and go back to their areas in the state, and now we have people working that entire state, every single angle and corner. And again, the 4-hour rule is significant. People will drive an hour and a half easy. So you don't need someone in every single town and every single agency. You just need enough to cover that circle outside of their agency. And so, yes, we are there in Texas, and we hope to do a lot more. And we will do a lot more. I'm trying to recruit one of your officers, to be honest with you. I think Plano, there's Elk Ridge. What is it? Elm Ridge? What are they? I can't remember. I got them written down over here. But Elm Ridge, Little Elm, Prosper. Yeah.
I'm Prosper. Okay. So.
One of your guys. I'm trying to recruit.
Yes, actually, Salina, I am in a relationship in the sense of partners with Salina Police Department. So I will definitely have to see how we can connect you. I know that I'm not law enforcement, but I want to come. But so you're dealing with the recovery. I deal with the after. I deal with the spiritual and the emotional side of the healing. And like I said, I have women in my house on a weekly basis. So it's pretty cool because I'm all about being local. Okay, you wanted to share with me something and when we were just talking, and you wanted to really pinpoint something. So please share.
Yeah, you asked about a recovery or op or some story that I could share, and there's several that I could share. And I think it's really critical for people to understand what we do, and that's prevention. And I'm going to give you a couple of specific cases. One individual who showed up to, we were portraying a mom who was selling her three children, 7, 9, and 11. And he drove 3.5 hours on a motorcycle to have sex with the 7 and 9-year-old. He wasn't interested in the 11-year-old. But once he's arrested and you are able to get into that phone, you can see any kind of communications that he's having. So that led to another individual that they were planning to kidnap mom and children from a mall, and they were going to tie the mom up and hold the children at gunpoint and rape them in front of their mom, because that was something they would get off on, is watching a mom watch their children be abused in front of them. Now, I know that's pretty harsh, and I'm sorry, but that's just the reality of it. We stopped that potentially, not we, meaning lots of agencies from Washington State were involved in that one, and they stopped that individual. Unfortunately, he pled guilty. 6 of the 12 that were arrested that weekend. He just got sentenced to like 27 months. Are you kidding me? 27 months. He should spend the rest of his life in prison, because if a dog bites a child, they get put down. You're talking about a physical and probably maybe a mental thing with dogs, maybe the rest of their life. But you're talking about what this individual has done, and who knows how many victims that this person already has. And they're coordinating with other sick individuals to do massive crimes against children and cause trauma on parents and all kinds of things. That's one. Here's another one that happened not long ago. This trial is still pending, so I can't give too many details. But not only in the same weekend was a couple who'd been doing this for decades together and married, man and wife, got off on purchasing children and whatever they do with them. But this particular individual wanted to trade his 2 and 3-year-old biological children for a 14-year-old that we were promoting online, because he could make more money off of a 14-year-old than he could from his 2 and 3-year-old, because there wasn't many clients out there wanting to have sex with his 2 and 3-year-old. So he literally showed up and got arrested. Imagine what would have happened if he actually met with the real individual and sold those kids or traded those 2 and 3-year-olds. Where would those 2 and 3-year-olds be today? What would be happening in their life? This is why prevention matters. We have to get out there and do proactive investigations, because there are crimes that will continue to occur if we don't get ahead of it. We cannot wait for crimes to occur and react. We have to stop crimes from occurring. We have to prevent crimes from occurring. That's what we are. Our mission is to protect and preserve the innocence of children in the United States. The only way to protect it and preserve innocence is to make sure it doesn't happen. In our statistics, we will never know. How many lives did we protect? How many years of innocence did we preserve? We won't know those statistics, and I hope I never know, because we're just going to continue to do the work, and I know God's going to have a tally up there of how many lives that didn't get affected and abused and had to heal from these things because of the work that we're doing proactively. And that's the other thing, is we're pushing these initiatives across the United States, getting law enforcement on board. That it is easy. It is very easy. And when I say that, I mean because there's so many people out there you could be communicating with, and you don't have to make 15 arrests every weekend. You need to make. Here's a very specific statistic on why we got an onslaught in Washington State, because we met with over 100 sheriffs and chiefs of police and leaders of law enforcement. And we broke it down to them very simply. If 1/3 of the agencies in this state, just 1/3, made one arrest per quarter, it doesn't seem very hard, we would have more impact in that year than the state has had in 10 years combined, okay? That doesn't seem very hard for them to do. And they're like, I don't even know where to start. Well, that's great, because we have the starter kit, everything you need as far as equipment and tools, and we're going to teach you for free. You're going to learn how to build these cases and where to go and how to be online undercover. And then eventually, hopefully we can teach you how to run these sting operations if you don't have a proactive unit that goes out and deals with major crimes. But they're arresting people already. I'm sure they know how to make arrests. So when you give it to law enforcement in a bite-sized way to consume this. So 1/3 of the agencies in Washington is 100 agencies. Now, make one arrest a quarter. They're like, one arrest a quarter. We're making several arrests a day. So it doesn't seem hard for them, right? But when you times 4 by 100, that's a lot of arrests in 1 year, right? Now that's only 1/3 of the agencies. What if half of them did it, right? And now law enforcement says like, wow, this doesn't seem as hard as I thought. And that's part of our training, is building your confidence to know that like you may have never done this before, but you've done some sort of investigations. It's not like we're teaching you an entirely different sport. It's just a different ball with different rules. And you'll be shocked at how fast this happens. In a small town where I grew up in, when we did our first, we call it an ad because you're advertising a child for sex on one site. I'm not talking about 12. I'm talking about one site. And they're asking me like, hey, how many people do you think we're going to have hit us up? I was like, maybe like 12 to 15 in this small town. No, we had hundreds of people hitting us up. And locally, right here where I live, we did an undercover ad, and we actually used this and changed the chief of police. He's like, whoa, we need to host this. We need a full-time person for this. He's like, is it really happening here? And I love this attitude, by the way. This is what chiefs of police need to do. Well, is it really happening here? And then the guy that works for me, his detective sergeant, said, I'm glad you asked, and turns around his laptop and said, here's the ad that we placed on one site. And we were speaking to 4 unique phone numbers within 10 minutes. Over 51 or 61 within 24 hours. And within a week, over 250 unique phone numbers were reaching out to this individual who was 14. Now we go less than that, but 14. And he could not believe it. And to take it even further, we showed him the messages that were taking place between these individuals and a 14-year-old child. And if that's not enough to wreck you and say, oh my gosh, we need to do something about this, then you're probably part of the problem, to be honest with you. Something needs to be done. And here's some positive encouragement. I love this. This occurred yesterday in several states with me on personal phone calls and emails from chiefs of police and lieutenants. Like they're giving their full support to their teams. And they thank us because they know the government won't there's no trainings really available. They're costly. Their budgets are so strapped, and there's so much red tape. If you put in a request for a $250 tablet, it goes on to next year's budget if it's not budgeted for, and there's approval processes, and IT gets involved, and there's all this stuff. And when we say, hey, here it is for you for free, no strings attached, they're like, is this too good to be true? I'm like, yeah, it's too good, and it's true. So that's where we're able to make real impact, because we're coming to you. We're freeing up some of your budget, training budget. People are seeing these cases all over the news. They're starting to share them, right? On social media, there's big arrests, sting operations, human trafficking is now. People know that it actually is occurring. And so law enforcement's like, well, we've been fighting the war on drugs for decades and haven't really done a whole lot, but we have billions of dollars and so many officers and different task forces. But I see this crime occurring all the time, and I have children. What do we got to do? Google, law enforcement training for child exploitation and trafficking. There's not very many people out there, and if they are, there's individuals who are trying to make a profit off of it and train law enforcement, where we're here saying, no, we're trying to serve a purpose between the people and the police for their communities. The people feel like, I need a voice. I want to do something. What can I do? Well, here's a great avenue. Bring the resources, sponsor your officers, or an officer at least in your area, and get them the equipment that they need to go out and proactively do these investigations. And eventually what I hope we can do is get communities to grant their city the finances to at least part-time employ somebody, but hopefully full-time employment to do proactive investigations, to go out there and hunt these guys down. So that's kind of my hope, is in every state we can help support that. But right now it's super easy for you. If you click on our community link, you can even start your own community fundraiser. It doesn't take a whole lot. And we can fly one of your officers out to one of our trainings, put them up, and they can go back with equipment and training to go out and start hunting these predators down in your communities.
I love that. I'm going to connect you with the connection I have with my local police department because they're trying to figure it out because it's happening in little town of America. And I just want to just say to people, as we just heard what Nate was saying, that was right here in America. That's not in a foreign country. That's right here in America, and it's in really nice neighborhoods. Well, if you had 60 seconds, although you had 60 seconds just a minute ago, but if you had 60 seconds to tell America something, what would it be? What would you say to America regarding this issue?
The innocence inside of a child, the sense of wonder, the trust, the inquisitive mind, the beautiful outlook on so many simple things is worth preserving more than most things on our planet, including national monuments. And I ask you, what are you doing to protect that? Because children lose their innocence eventually. But I do think that it's the most valuable thing. When you're asked to be childlike to get into heaven, I do think that we're asked to go back to that innocence, that purity, that most simple, organic love, to believe in Santa, to believe in humanity, to believe in whatever it is. It's just the most beautiful, valuable, precious thing inside of that wonder inside of a child, that innocence. I would say that there's nothing more important to protect than that. I really, truly, I don't believe there's nothing more. So can you please help us protect the innocence of our children here in the United States? That's what I would say to America. We have to do it. We have to prioritize it. We have to have the people come together. We can't be one individual, can't be one organization. It has to be an army, and we have to unite in this war for innocence. The war on drugs is the war on drugs, but the war on children is much more important. And we need to unite, and we need to come together because we're so much stronger, and your voice does matter. Your voice carries strength and it carries weight, and the louder you get, the more effective you are. And you don't have to have 150 people show up to a 5K to raise money for our organization. You need 150 people to show up to city council, and you need some sort of ability to go out there and make impact in your community through facts and evidence of actual cases that are occurring and sentencing that's being handed out, and you need to make change in your community. And you can, and we're going to help you. So please visit our website, theinnocent.org, learn more, get educated, and join one of our teams and make change in your community. Be that leader in your community to make impact, change the future of your town, change the future of your state, change the future of our children in America.
Wow, that was wonderfully put. And yeah, let's protect our children. I want to cry. Will you pray us out?
Oh, absolutely. Lord, we just come to you today and ask that you pause our busy schedules and our busy lives and give us a moment to just be still and find that peace and bring us that peace so that we can give a moment in this silence and focus on the children, the future of this world, the future of our communities, the future of America. Unite us in the one important role that we play as adults as the protector and a guider for our next generation. Open the hearts and minds to the realities of what our young generations are facing and the evil that exists on our planet. I pray for all of the children that are currently stuck in these situations, that they get freed from this abuse. We pray of some sort of divine intervention for the evil that are living out there to have conversion and to stop these evil, sick ways of life. Pray for law enforcement to continue to have encouragement to go out there and hunt down predators and traffickers in their communities. Pray for their supervisors to enable them with the abilities and the time and the backing to prioritize these type of investigations, to be proactive. We pray for all legislature and laws that can continue to get stronger and build stronger laws that support these type of investigations. And we just pray for families, that they can have these conversations and the confidence and courage to have these conversations with their children, to get educated and speak factually and start building or increasing their relationship with their children. And we pray for all those out there who have the voice, that have these platforms, including this today, this podcast, that people will hear it, that it'll reach people, that it can change and impact communities throughout America, and we can truly change the future of this great nation. Lord, we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. So I like to tell certain people this. It's very rare that we get to meet our heroes. And my heroes are the one that protect our children. They keep our children safe and fight for our kids. So you are truly my hero, and it was such an honor having you here today. Y'all, if you want to learn more about Nate and the Innocent, go to theinnocent.org. And be a protector. How can you bring in your local community and your law enforcement, and go to the mayor, city council, all those things. And thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and have a blessed day. Please comment and let me know how this is blessing you. Have a wonderful day.